All right. Well, hello everyone and good morning. Welcome to our cash account change training. So we're going to talk through basically cash account. I'm going to talk through a couple things. We're going to start with resources. I have a couple examples of the process for us, so we'll go through it a couple different times. As always, if you have questions, please feel free to put those in the chat. Or if you feel comfortable unmuting and asking a question, that is totally fine with me as well. Um, and yeah, and we'll kind of go through it today. So let's go to the documentation page for it. So in the USAS documentation, in the USAS manual, um, we are going to, sorry, my computer is a little, it's waking up a little still. So if we go to utilities and account change, the cash account change uh, utility function is going to be within where our regular cash account has been. So we have a section for it on our documentation page in the software. We're going to see this is where we are going. Um, to use cash account change. Now, uh, I've been doing pretty good at my lingo of calling it cash account change, but I also wanted to mention this is what in Classic and for some time has been referred to as fund change. Um, so the basics of what this is going to do is it's changing the entire cash account, which is the fund special cost center, and any underlying accounts. So it really does change, the whole fund. But in the software, those, if we look at the grids, like when we look at the cash account grid, that's really what we're referring to. So sort of as we developed this option, the old name of fund change didn't fully make sense, so it kind of switched there. But fund change, cash account change, pretty much interchangeable. We're talking about the same thing as far as what that has referenced in the past and what cash account change is now. Um, okay, so this is where you find the documentation. If you need to refer to it, this is the basics. I also wanted to look at a couple other things here. Let's see. Let's go to our appendix real quick. So I'm still in the USAS manual. I will go to useful procedures. Sorry, let's open this up a little bit. And under the useful procedures, I would have this page that we added. We mentioned this in our last release recap. And this is like a new page that's out here. It was mentioned in the newsletter article. But basically, this page is something that when I was kind of looking through with some questions we had related to, account change and fund change slash cash account change, I was looking back at some of the classic documentation, and this page is actually based off of a page that existed there, which was when do I use account change versus when do I use fund change. And so this is like the new version of that page. So it's basically just like, some standard compiling of like, okay, expenditure revenue account changes, like the regular account changes we've had all along versus cash account change. Each one of these sections sort of goes through a summary, the requirements for each, and examples of when you would use, each different type. So this is kind of a helpful one just to wrap your head around, like, okay, um, you know, you want to make a change, or like your ITC, your district wants to make a change, and they're trying to figure out like what's appropriate to process. Reading through some of these, requirements and what it's going to do can kind of help say like, oh, okay, it makes sense that this is the kind of change that they would need in this situation. Um, so we have that there. The other thing I want to look at, and it's so funny, we make our rounds in the documentation, pretty often on our trainings here. Let me just go back to the homepage. And I know I mentioned them, but we're gonna like look at the newsletter article this time, and I have a couple things that I'm just wanted to talk through, but they also happen to be in the newsletter article from May. So I'm gonna pull that up and we'll like use that as our visual aid here while I sort of talk through a couple more things. And then we'll jump in. I have an instance that we'll take a look at with some examples. So we'll get there as well. Um, okay. So again, this is the May 2026 newsletter. And I scrolled down to the second article. The second article is called Cha-ching, Cash Account Changes Here. Um, this goes through, gives our screenshot and it gives some basics. And so, you know, the other page we looked at had, some of these same notes, but I liked that we have our nice list here. And let me zoom in a little bit. So the first thing I want to talk about before we jump in is when account change is used. So the first thing is all accounts from the old cash account will be created in the new cash account. So if we think about that, I mean, basically what we're gonna do, so you have your cash account, your fund special cost center. Underneath that, you have the appropriation accounts, the expenditure accounts, the revenue accounts. So when we're going to be looking to do a cash change, the first thing we want to know is like, yes, we want to copy the entire cash account. I'm not, I'm copying the fund special cost center and every account that has that fund and special cost center on it. I'm going to create now new accounts basically, and the change will create them. I'm going to create like a whole new chart of accounts with that new fund special cost center when I do this. The next bullet point, all accounts in the old cash account will be made inactive and no longer used. So this is consistent with how a normal account change processed. Like if you do like an expenditure account change, the old account is made inactive. Um, so uh, it's a situation when you're not going to be using the old Fed special cost center. So, we've had some questions and we'll talk a little bit about the AOS requirements here in a minute, but sometimes people are thinking like, okay, so if I cash account change like the general fund over to this, and like the general fund is not something that you would use a cash account change on because you're not going to inactivate your general fund. Like you're still going to be using your general fund. And so obviously it's not always that one, but like that's just kind of where my mind goes when I'm thinking about this. Like, okay, a situation where I'm going to be using cash account change is the old account's inactive. I'm not using that anymore. The new fund special cost center cannot already exist. So this is another thing as well, that when you are using cash account change, it's going to create the new fund special cost center and everything and like all of the accounts that are needed. So one of the restrictions to using this is that the new account has to be a brand new fund special cost center that doesn't already exist. So this function is not something that's used for like merging accounts. Um, so um, it's not something where you're gonna like, take three cash accounts and merge them into one. Like it's basically moving to just, this account, the original account's no longer going to be active. The new account is going to be, now new, but with a new fund special cost center. The other thing that I wanted to just go back to, the first bullet point, all accounts from the old cash account will be created. The other point in that, that I don't know that I specifically said is, all accounts, like, italic all. So the other thing is when you're doing a cash account change, like, you know, it's creating not just like it's not just a subset. So like basically if I'm going to be creating a cash account fund, it's because I want every single, expenditure. We will see there's like a way to not bring over inactive ones, but like I want every single expenditure account created. I want every single revenue account created. I want the entire cash account fund and all underlying accounts, and you don't get to pick and choose. And so that's where like another question has kind of been like, there are some situations where like, districts might be creating a new account with like some subset of accounts under it. And like, yeah, maybe they're similar to a different existing fund, but if they don't want to copy that full fund, then that's also like a situation where it's not for, right? And then the last one is activity for the selected fiscal year needs to be updated back to 7/1. So when the cash account change is used, it also works how account change does, how the regular account expenditure and revenue change. It actually goes through on the checks, on the POs, on any transactions, and it updates the account that's on that activity back to 7/1 of the fiscal year that the change is being made for. So, if I were to go back and then like run a budget summary, of the year, it's going to be updating the actual figures for my entire current or like current fiscal year. You choose the fiscal year when you run it. So if I choose so based on the fiscal year I choose when I run it, it'll change the actual like received and expendeds over to the new fund. So the other side of that is that if there's a situation like some of these AOS situations, they just say like accounts need to be used going forward. And so that's a case where like you could still, base a new account on an existing account, copy some, extract the accounts and then import similar account structure without actually having to do a full change. So there's some flexibility on like when you need to use this, but these are like the main points. And when we're talking about some of the situations that um AOS has come up with, there's really, most of the AOS updates don't require use of account change, but I know it's been talked about in the context of those. So that's why I kind of wanted to just start with talking about like, hey, here are like kind of the overview of when or when cash account change is used. Related specifically to those AOS changes that happened, cash account change is for the grant accounts no longer in use scenario that was talked about. So there's a listing of cash accounts that or like fund codes rather that are like to no longer be used per the AOS updates. And so what this would allow you to do is, move if they have um, activity still in one of these grant accounts that's no longer to be used, they can take that grant account and review it for like where it more appropriately should fit within the valid funds, and they can move that entire account to a new fund special cost center. Um, So, and then there are some other options here, like if history does not need to be changed, cash accounts instead would be made inactive. That's another option. And then the other thing, just to point out specifically, is, we've had some questions about the new general fund special cost centers. So, the special cost centers that are the 001, and then they have a special cost center that starts with 9 and ends with an X, like 911X. Those are not a situation where fund change applies because first of all, you're not inactivating your general fund. Um, and, it's really like a subset of accounts that may be used like in those new accounts from the general fund. So there are definitely some other solutions for that. I have some notes on this here. I talked about this as an example on our budgeting training this year as well. So, if you have that situation where you need those new special cost centers created, there are definitely solutions, but I would say cash account is not the option for that one. So that's kind of the overview of like when this would be used. I wanted to look at one more thing. I know we're like deep in the documentation here, and we've been going for a while, so I promise you I have examples. Um, I just want to go, since I'm talking about these changes. Uh, I'm gonna pull up the AOS manual here, which we have linked on our fiscal year end meeting page. Um, so let's see, let's get it loaded. Okay. Um, so this is our AOS manual. This is the May 2026 updated version. And it kind of defaulted to where I was here, so I'll show you. Look, I'm on page 149. So this is where it says eliminate the grant funds for grants no longer active, and then here's the list. So when I'm talking about, the AOS situation where they say grants no longer active, this is what I'm referring to. Um, and then there's another one. Um, Sorry, I know it's only one more page down here. Update funds for the 014. This is another situation where the a changing from the 014 may also be relevant for, a cash change can also be helpful here as well. Also, just if you pull this up and you want to look for these pages, I also did, if you do a control find and type in to search for fund change. These two situations in the AOS manual specifically mention the fund change functionality. Now, it is available now. It's cash account change that we're going to see. But the specific situations that, I'm referring here with the funds, they actually mention this in the section. So if you come back here and you can't find the page, that's a good way to search for, these situations that we're talking about here. So, um, let's see. Okay. All right. So that is where I'm at with our sort of overview of talking. That's where we're starting out. Let me get we'll stay here for now because we're gonna hop into the software. Okay. Oh, get a little preview of our error message there. Okay. All right. So, we are logged into USS. You know what? I'm gonna zoom in again. We'll see once we get in there what we are looking like, though. If we need to zoom back out, we might have to do that. So I'm going under utilities account change. You know what? I totally lied. So this is where we'll do the account change. We'll be back in here in a minute. First, what I want to do is look at the account. So I picked a couple random accounts from the start. I didn't have any, in my instance that were, like those ones that are on the list of the grant accounts, to change. But so basically what I did is I just picked some accounts that have amounts in them. So I picked, I found accounts that had initial cash, something expended, something received, and a fund balance on there. Um, so we have a group of accounts we can work with as the from account on our change. And so real quick, just to look at that before we go in and start making changes. Oh, hang on, let this load first. Yeah, my Zoom is already working against us here, but we're good. We're close enough. Okay. Uh, So I'm looking at 018 funds, um, because I have a couple here. So I think we're gonna do like we have the 9210, 9211, 9220. So like this range right here is where I'm looking at. So we can see like this account, 9210 is where we'll start. This has an initial cash, receipts, expenditures, and a fund balance on here. It's an active account. Um, and then if I go to our expenditure grid, just do a little overview here. I have, a handful of active accounts here for this fund special cost center. And if I look at these accounts, so they have budgets in there, they have expended amounts in here, they have encumbrances, um, and these are active. So this is where we're starting, just with like this is our from account. We want to take this account. And I'll tell you right now, I do not promise that the codes I'm changing from one code to another actually make sense. Again, I just wanted something that had numbers in it. So, our our high school account here, and then we're gonna change it to an 020. So I don't know that in any world you would do that, but it'll be good for at least our figures, at least our numbers to see. So. Okay, so I'm back to the utilities account change. And what I'm going to do to get started to actually run an account change is go to create. And the first thing I want to do, select account type is right at the top here. This is the first little drop down. And I select cash account. And let me just make that bigger since we're zoomed in. So we select cash account change, and then this changes so that we have the options to put in here for a cash account. Um, the starting fiscal year, so this is gonna show me like any options for fiscal years if that is if it's like an open fiscal year. So right now like I'm in 26, I have budgets posted for 27, so both of those. Um but if I do it for 26, it's going to change everything back to 7/1 of 25. So for all of 26 activity, and that's what I want. So I'll leave it there. Um, and then this has a note. So we talked about this, previously is cash account change will create a new cash account and update underlying accounts tied to the from cash account, so where we're starting hierarchy. So it'll create all the accounts in the new fund special cost center. This will not merge multiple accounts into a single account. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Jobs must be scheduled within a 45-minute buffer to allow completion and avoid potential errors. We're gonna put a pin in that. Our first example, we're not gonna schedule it. Then we'll talk about that on our next example. So the from account, let's grab our 018 9210. And I'm just gonna go to we didn't look at this on the grid, but I know, I looked at the accounts that we have existing for 020, and this one does not exist. So I'm just giving it a new special cost center. Um, we also have this checkbox, exclude inactive underlying accounts with no activity. So I'm going to check that. I only really want to bring the active accounts over. So this is where I kind of mentioned earlier, like, yes, it copies all the underlying, like it copies all of the accounts in the cash account. But the exception is if you have accounts that are inactive that have no amounts. So, if you're going to run this, it could be helpful to review that ahead of time and, inactivate any accounts that you don't want to bring over. If an account has an amount on it, whether that's like a budgeted amount, an expended amount, received amount. If it's inactive, but it has an amount, it still has to be copied. So that's where it's, no activity. If it's inactive and it has no activity, we can skip it. But if it has activity, we can't skip it because ultimately when we make the move to the new cash account, that needs to balance to what the old cash account was. So, that's sort of the caveat there. But we still wanted an option, when this was being developed to say like, hey, maybe you don't want, if there's an account that wasn't being used and is inactive, you don't want to copy that potentially. So I'm going to check that. Scheduled job. So this, it gives you ability to pick a date and time. If we do not want to schedule it and we want to just run it right now, just leave it blank. Okay. And then when I'm ready, so I'm running this one on demand right now. I'm going to ooh, I just remembered something. So I'm going to save this one and have it run right now. I will tell you though, and I was going to mention this later, but now we get to see it on the fly. So in our test, if you're in a test instance, so if you're an ITC, and you want to be testing this, uh, I'm in a demo instance, so I did check it. Okay, I just wanted to double check. So if you're running a test of like an account change or a cache account change, in a non-production instance, I went to system configuration, application configuration. This has to be checked. So before I hit go, I wanted to double check and make sure it would run. So yeah, so a little tip there. Make sure that, yeah, if you're testing anything, you just want to have that marked. But we're good to go. So let me save this up. Now, what that's going to do is a couple things. It says, warning, an associated cache account 020-926 did not previously exist. Perfect. One was automatically created with this operation. So as soon as I save my cache account change, if I'm running it like immediately, actually, even if I schedule it, the cache account does get created. So if I went and looked on my account grid right now, it would have that out there. The second thing I get here is this is sort of like a validation window that you'll always get. So cache account change job was validated successfully. Great. Cache account change job was submitted successfully for 18 accounts. So I get my count of updates. We can also see in the background now that these are listed. See all my 018s? These are listed on my grid, pending change. And one thing that is to note, definitely to note because it looks different than normal, but this is absolutely normal in how it works, is any of these account changes that are for the cache account change will originally, like initially, they will show with no to account because that to account doesn't exist yet. But what's going to happen is as it goes through and updates and runs this cache account change, it's going to create those accounts and then they'll end up being added in there. So let me see if I talk too much or if we can see our progress. Okay, so I flipped over the top left to our progress tab. And as these run, you can flip over to this page and see as they complete. So we have all of these ones that are completed. This is our last one that's in progress. I do have a refresh option on this grid, or it just will refresh every few seconds. So, we can kind of see as these are going, they're getting the account added, and it's going through at this step also. And like you can see, let me see if I can widen these, that this sort of updates um what steps it's working on. So this one currently, it's updating accounts. The next step is to go update the proposed amounts, um and sort of tells you, what it's working on. And we're almost done. Let's see. And I believe there it is. So if we're in here, if we're specifically in this tab waiting for it to be done, I mean, I picked one where we can kind of see all the accounts, but I understand if they're making this change, they might have cache accounts that have way more that are processing in here. So if you're sitting on this progress tab, kind of like, waiting and watching, once it actually finishes all of those you know, requests in progress, it'll pop up and say process request. review request tab for the status. And so we can switch back then to our request tab, and we have all of these that are completed. Okay. Now I have some more things to show, but let's kind of debated how to do this because I want to show you, what this did, like how this updated. We'll look at the accounts again to see where we ended up. But I think while we're in here, I want to just kind of keep running the account changes and then we'll kind of look at our results afterwards. Um, so let's just put in another one here and let's talk about scheduling the account change. So I changed my type to cash. Um, I'm gonna stick with my similar accounts here. This time we're gonna do um the next 018 account. So this is, all of those are sort of the same steps as we did for the last one. Um, but what I'm gonna do is schedule the job now. So for this one, I'm gonna choose, hang on. I'm gonna choose, let's run it today, but then let's run it at like, let's say 10 p.m. tonight. So I want to schedule this one out like, um, you know, we'll pretend like maybe this is like a pretty big change, and we're like, hey, let's just schedule it for 10 o'clock tonight. It'll go in and run, and then when I come in tomorrow, I know it's all in. I know that wasn't like processing while anybody else is doing anything on a Friday. Like it happened overnight. So I'm gonna schedule this for 10 p.m. tonight and save that up. Now we can see, so when I scheduled it, it did still say, hey, the cash account did not previously exist, so one was automatically created. So the cash account now exists out there. Um, so part of that is like, while that exists, like another cash account can't be created, for that same, new code, even while it's pending. So it gets created at this step. We also get our informational messages. The job was validated successfully. And then the cash account change job was for 20 accounts. So if we come out here, you can see again, we've got these sitting out here with uh, blank lines. I want to show you real quick the progress tab. So our progress tab does show the accounts that are sitting out here and it shows them as scheduled. So if we're stacking these up and we have them scheduled out, to run, later tonight, then that's helpful. The other thing I want to show, now I've been kind of only showing you part of this grid so we could adapt a little bit at a time, and I'm going to do a zoom out here, is we also have some other columns on this grid that can be helpful. So now that I'm getting a little bit more in here, I got multiple cash account changes. And so, each one of those cash account changes has a line for the revenue and the expenditure. Like it's kind of a lot going on. Um, we have some ways to filter this grid to make it easier to see. If I wanted to specifically see um, changes that are sitting there for a cash account change. I have this, is this associated with a cash change, true or false? If I wanted to see my regular account changes that aren't from a cash account change, I could put false in here, and just see those again. If I did want to see things that are associated with a cash account change specifically, I can put true. And then I also have the new cash code. So because the account change, like the cash account change, can only be to a new account, the new code is always going to be unique. And so if I want to see here any of these rows that are associated with my scheduled change, I could just put in the new fund special cost center, and then this would get me the grid where I can see all of these, if I needed to. So that's just an easy way to kind of like look up these, on this grid, kind of to organize, and we can see their pending status on this grid. And then, okay. So the next thing we're gonna do is schedule another one. Because what we want to talk about now is this 45-minute buffer. And so let's do the night. Mm, we'll do um the 9220. And so put it in our fun special cost center here. Sorry, I just want to make sure. I'm like trying to make sure I do what because when we're going to look at things later, there are certain things I have on some of the accounts. So, uh, all right. So let's do this one. So now we're going to schedule again. And our last one was scheduled at 10 o'clock. So let's schedule this one at like 10:05, right? Like that's enough time. Wait, we need PM. Ooh, I hope I scheduled the first one at PM. Um, we're gonna see. So, so we'll go ahead and schedule this one, and I'm gonna save it up. And then this is where we do get a message now. So we get error cash account change job is already running or scheduled within 45 minutes of the request time. Please select a different time. And then it does tell you currently scheduled jobs are, and it tells you like when that's scheduled. And so, if like you're working on maybe you're setting up, a handful of cash account changes for some reason, like maybe they have a lot of those like old grant accounts and they need to clean up a grouping of them. Um, when you're going in and just picking a time, like if they forget the times that they've already had to try and pace them, this gives you a list and lets you know. So, um, that helps with that. And it doesn't like save it, it doesn't create the cash account, it doesn't create the change or anything like that. Additionally, you also get in your downloads folder, and I figured I'd show this when we get here, is you do get a text file when you do the cash account change, when you submit it to tell you basically with those validations we were seeing. So, like when you had the information, yes, this is valid. Or in this case, if there was an error, no, it's not valid, and the details do go to a text file. Um, and with these short ones, like, it's like, okay, yes, we have it, but in a situation when um there might be errors that or things to address that or a longer list, we wanted to have an option that was more than just that pop-up. I know we've gotten feedback on like some other, messages in the software where it's like a pop-up with like if there's, multiple accounts in that, that's hard because then you're like, okay, I want to take a screenshot. I gotta go look at those accounts. I might need to do something with that. And so this download option is helpful so that they can get a report and see that. And you know what? I just questioned myself. I'm not sure if you, I hope you can see my downloads pop up on the Zoom, but if not, in my downloads folder, it's just a TXT file that's called cache change submission. And so that would just go to like the downloads on your computer. So, um, okay, so this, if we schedule it, it gives us the warning. I do want to run this one though, so I'm just gonna not schedule it. I'm just gonna run it right now, um, and let that process through. Creates my cash account, 12 accounts. And so you can see now I have my scheduled ones and I have these pending ones in here, but the pending ones are gonna run currently, I believe. Yes, okay. I was like, did I test this exact scenario? I thought it did, but sometimes when we're live, you're like, I never know what's gonna happen. No, we do. It runs. So yeah, so it's gonna go through and it's creating these accounts now. It will update those. Um, okay. Yeah, let's let this finish. Um, I want to let this finish, then we're going to talk about a couple things. So I'm just deciding my order here. Let's go. I think after this one finishes, I think this is a good time to kind of hop back just over to our account grid real quick and just look at what we got going on there. That'll be a brief thing. I also want to talk about deleting a cash account change, so we'll take a look at that. And then I have another error message I want to discuss as well. So we got a couple more things to talk about with this. Okay. Okay, so this one, we got completed all the ones associated with this account. Yes. Okay, and our scheduled ones are just still out here. Um, so let's go back to our core accounts. So first of all, cash account. Sorry, my cash account is my cash grid here needs a little load. I did add some extra of these like numerical columns on there, so probably is not helping. Um, 9-2. So if I just go in and I change several of these that, start with 9-2 for the special cost center, you can see they don't show, where I'm not seeing them by default in my grid. I have it checked so that it only shows the active accounts. So if I uncheck that, I can see here's the two accounts that I changed. So 018, 9210, and that now is all zeros on the old account. So if I come in here, this is all zeros. So everything was moved. And um, hang on, actually. So sorry. We switch back and forth real quick. I'm just gonna go back and look at the new cash account real quick, and then that way we can look all the same account types at once. Oh my goodness. Okay. Now here what we're seeing is under our O2Os. We have the 9026, so this one we account changed over. You see the amounts. The 9028, this is the other one that I account changed over, so we see the amounts. And then the 9027 special cost center is the one that we have scheduled for 10 p.m. tonight. So right now that's created and that doesn't have any amounts there yet because it hasn't actually changed the underlying accounts, but it does exist. If we flip over to, I'm going to look at expenditure, but obviously revenue accounts update as well. Let's look at our 9210. And originally I see nothing because I also, again, have this defaulted to only show active. All of the accounts are now inactive with zero amounts. In our new fund, we have the accounts created to match, and I'd have to pick an account that had amounts on it. So here's the one we sort of looked at an example at the very start in the 018 account, got moved over where the initial budgets moved, expendable, actual expended, encumbered, everything gets moved over. So this account now looks just how it did as, the old Fund Special Cost Center account. The one thing I want to look at though, and I had to find an example of this one, this is why we did the second account change real quick, is which account was it? Um, Hang on, I could add a column, but also I could just click through these real quick. Okay. Well, we'll look for it this way. So, the one thing that um I want to just look at how it looks on these accounts is accounts with a prior year encumbrance. So how it works when it's cash account changed is the same way that it works with a normal account change for moving that carryover encumbrance from the old account to the new account. The difference is you're crossing funds. You know, this time you're actually making like a new fund special cost center. So I just want to touch on this. And let me get my example pulled up here. Wait. Oh, I think I put the wrong fund in. I totally did. Hmm. I swear. Okay, well, I must have not. Oh, I know what it is. I know what it is. This is because this is exactly what I'm trying to show you. Sorry. Sorry about that. So let me look at the old accounts, okay? Let's start here. Let's look at the old accounts because this one, let's see, it's the fourth one down. Okay, so this account had a carryover encumbrance, a prior year encumbrance on it. And so at the end of the last fiscal year, there was a purchase order that had a remaining encumbrance. At the start of this fiscal year, that gets stamped as like the carryover encumbered, the prior year encumbrance. And that gets included then in the calculation for the expendable amount. Okay, but really what this amount is from the PO, the fact that the PO was outstanding at the end of 2025. So when we're doing the account change, we're only changing the history of 2026. So this is one thing that's sort of an exception. Now, what that impacts is the expendable amount, right? And so how the system accounts for that is it has this adjustment and it says here like account change adjustment moving carryover to new account. And so ultimately in the old accounts, the expendable ends up being zero. The appropriated amounts on this account are zero. Again, this is exactly how it works with like a regular expenditure account change. And so that's how it reflects. On the new account, and let's see, that one has the 640. I believe it's this one. Nope. Oh my goodness. Oh, I am so sorry. We'll get there, I promise. Okay. So when we look at the new account, make sure this is the right one. So we look at this and we don't see it in the carryover encumbered, and that's because it's not actually going to go change. Like if it did that, it would have to go back another year to change history, and that's not what account change or cash account change are going to do. But what it does is it has this adjustment in here, and this is the counter adjustment to what we saw on the old account. So basically, the old account, it says, I'm going to reduce this so it's zero. On the new account, it's adding this as an adjustment. So it's in this figure in the adjustments field. And ultimately, it's in the expendable. So when I made the change, the old account's expendable was $13,000. My new account's expendable is $13,000 still. So my appropriated amounts on the account are the same. Um, it's just a matter of like where it shows. For most things, that does not really change much. But I wanted to mention it because, especially when we're looking at like full cash accounts, it is a little bit different. And so I just wanted to talk it through when we're together so that, if you see this, if you have questions about it, if you get questions about it as an ITC, you can kind of see how that's working. So where am I going to see this? On a budget summary. The cash summary, it does not include um appropriated amounts. So it wouldn't be a difference on a cash summary. On a budget summary, you do have columns for fiscal to date appropriated and fiscal to date I'm sorry, and the prior year encumbrance, and then ultimately like those two add up to your fiscal to date expendable. What can I spend? And so for those budgeting columns, the appropriated and the prior year encumbrance, um, those I believe will stay. Yeah, because the prior year encumbrance is staying the same. Um, but the main reports that this is really going to affect, and this is the other reason I wanted to mention this, is so periodic reports, appropriation resolution, and the certification reports, like your amended certificate, these do have columns that specifically are calculated using the prior year encumbrance. Now, we reviewed these, before making the change because I know, even just mentioning these reports, it might, make your flag go up because I know that these reports are things that they report to the auditors. These are important. But basically, what it does is, um, the reports like this that specifically include the prior year encumbrance, it's keeping them in the account that they originally were in, which my understanding is that generally like when we've had it reported, like when we did the migrations, the problem was that the carryover encumbrances were changing from what that original submission of this report was. So what's happening in this case is those are not changing. Um, but what it'll look like when you see these reports is there will be a row for the old fund special cost center that has that accounts for the carryover amount, and then a line with everything else for the new fund special cost center. Ultimately, the totals balance out, like everything, is equal because it was just moved one to one. But it just looks a little bit different. I think that it'll be okay. The other thing too is this would only be in a situation of if this report has run and a fund change has happened. Now, these reports are also ones where, my understanding is that generally it's like the beginning of the year when they're providing, when they're getting these set and providing them to their auditors, which likely you're not processing a fund change right at the start of the fiscal year because it's meant to change the history, of the current year. Usually that would be like a year, towards the end of the year thing. So I don't know that it's going to impact those reports a whole lot. I think the way that it does show on them makes sense. But I just wanted to kind of, again, this is our time to talk about everything. So that was just kind of on my list to mention as well. Um, okay. Let's go back to our cash account change here. And I know we are at 10 o'clock. I have just a couple more things that we're going to look at before we wrap up. So probably another like 15 minutes or so. Um, let's talk about deleting a change. So I want to we'll look at this scheduled one since we have this out here. Um, the ones that we didn't schedule, you could see those like run right away. So, if you're saving it and running it right away, like I would not suggest coming in and doing like a delete method like this because if you get like part of the accounts, like that may not go well. Um, but if you scheduled an account change and you want to uh and you want to change it, you want to delete it before it runs, that is a possibility. So I'm looking up all of the changes related to this specific change that we scheduled. And we saw, you can see these here. You can see these on the progress tab. Let me also show you. We saw that the cash account, the Fund Special Cost Center, was created on our cash account grid. And let me show you one more thing. And this is just for good measure. You don't really have to look at this, but this is just, hey, this is what the system's doing. So I went to our utilities job scheduler grid, and you can see out here we have cash account change jobs. So when you're running an account change or a cash account change, that utility uses the jobs to process through. So let me just scroll over here because you can see that I have two that were completed. Those are the two we ran. And then I have one out here that's pending still, and I can see that that is scheduled to run for tonight at 10 p.m. Now, I know that the job scheduler isn't the most friendly, and you do not have to come out here and be like canceling jobs to delete these. I just wanted to show you that this is, this is like part of what we have here. And then also this is kind of a solution if you want to go see, aside from like that, those informational messages, like, okay, if I have a handful of cash account changes scheduled, you could come out here and see what times they're scheduled for. Um, but back to this. So if I want to stop this from happening now, what I can do, I've filtered my grid to just be all of the accounts for this cash account change. I can select all of those and then I can delete. One or more of the selected requests are cash account change related. You will not be able to recreate these requests once deleted. Would you like to continue? Now, this is where technically like you could delete, I'm deleting all of them for a cash account change, but if I wanted to delete like just selected ones from a cash account change, like technically you can do that, but this gives you the warning saying like, hey, if I'm deleting these, I can't, especially if I'm just picking and choosing some from a cash account change that's already running, then uh you can't just recreate that with another cash account change. Now, in this case, this example, I'm deleting all of them. So I'm going to say yes. And now I no longer have any account change pending out there for that code. Now, it did create the Fund Special Cost Center for the new one already. But now, since I deleted all of those before any changes happened, before any activity happened on that account, I can come out here to my cash account and delete that. So, if anything posts to that account or anything, that won't be a possibility. But in this, this is really the situation where like, hey, they just scheduled it, you just scheduled it, but then you're like, wait, I want to use a different special cost center or something. I do have an option where if I catch it before anything goes, I can I have a little undo option there. Um, okay. So that's deleting. And then the last thing I want to talk about here, last thing as far as account change. So there is another error message that you can get when you're scheduling these, and I want to talk about that real quick. So I'm just gonna force it to happen, and then we'll look at um the actual errors here. So this error only happens if you're trying to change an account that has the all zeros special cost center to a special cost center that's like a 9,000 special cost center. And one of the unique things when you have a special cost center that's all zeros is that they could have other special cost centers between 0001 and 8999, right? Like they could have special cost centers that they use that would roll up into the cash account with all zeros. So, um, add a new fund, add a new special cost center. And actually, I don't think it matters. We can uncheck that. let's exclude inactive accounts. Um, and then I'm going to save this. And in this case, if I try this, I'm getting these errors. And so just to look through these is the cash account change job validation failed. Changing a cash account from all zeros to a 9,000 special cost center may cause multiple from accounts with with special cost centers, with those lower numbers to convert to the same 9,000 special cost center. The following accounts have potential duplicates and will not merge into the new 9,000 special cost center. This stops the full account change from happening. So it did not happen. It's not saved. No rows were created on here. I need to address these errors first before I can save this change. So I'm going to X out of this. You do get the download of the TXT file. Since I'm sharing my browser with you, I actually just copied that over to this Word document so we could look at it here. Um, so this is, see the same error. Now, here's what we're seeing. Let me separate these out a little bit. So what we're seeing, these two accounts, notice how every piece of the account is the same except for the special cost center. Now, what the cash account change is doing, right? It's replacing the fund and the special cost center. So we said we were going from the 300 all zeros to 020 90 30. So what this would want to do here then is say 020. So if it were to try and do this cash account change, these accounts, these two different accounts in the old fund would end up being the exact same account code, and we can't have two account codes, right? So it just halts it because it can't it's not going to merge these, and it can't have two accounts of the same exact code. The solution to this, so what you can do, if you get this error, is go to the accounts, and the um in the old account structure, and this one, let's see, 4516. In the old structure, then I could look at these accounts, and if there is one like this is all zeros, I could activate that one. Wait, these aren't shown active. Maybe yeah, so I think I ended up unchecking the box, right, to include active. Well, this was from my previous test. So obviously I included inactive accounts. So anyways, sorry, don't let me don't let me get myself distracted here. Is the point is you could inactivate one or both of those accounts and then present the change without including the inactive accounts, or you could account change one into the other. Like if they both have activity, then it doesn't matter, if it has activity, it's going to be included no matter what. You could run a regular expenditure account change, from one to the other to like combine them within the old fund before doing the new cash account fund. So that is like the main error that we kind of talked about with the team that could come up. So I wanted to mention that. I think it'll be pretty rare. Again, it's only in the case when the from account is all zeros for the special cost center, which I don't think will be like the common situation to be using this. Um, I don't know that I have that error specifically in the documentation now, but I got a good example of it for this training, so I'm planning to add that. Um, so that is the errors. That's cash account change. A couple more things before we go, not cash account change specific, is let me get back to our home page here. Okay, one of my notes is that application configuration if you're testing. So we hit that earlier. Um, the other thing here is we had a hot fix that went out last night, and I just wanted to mention this because I know we sent a message about this as well. So the account change job, this affects expenditure, revenue, and cash, has been corrected to update future transactions. So when you run, like we were looking at, when you run the cash account change, when you run like an account change, that is going to update the year we were choosing fiscal year 26. It updates fiscal year 26 and it also updates 27. Like if you already have budgets posted in 27, it needs to update the current year going forward to the new account because the old account's going to be inactive. So, the current year and future years will be updated. Well, through some testing, we did find that the budget transactions, or like if you had future year POs, that sort of thing, weren't actually being updated with the account change, which we know is a problem. So this hot fix was pushed out ASAP to make sure that those will, accurately be updated. So for changes that are posted, that's now been fixed after this hot fix is applied. Um, if you have or if you've processed an account change or cash account change in 26 and the accounts had transactions in 27 when the job ran, there could be some right now. Luckily, we are in the beginning of June, so you wouldn't really even see that unless like you flip to July. So what we're gonna do is put out a patch um, so it'll be a second hot fix and that'll patch all of those transactions to basically update what should have been updated in 27. And so by the time that anybody is ready to switch to July, you won't even notice. So there's nothing that the districts have to do on this, nothing that you have to do with the ITCs. This is just sort of a heads up. I just wanted to, mention what's going on because I know we had sent out an email about this. So just to sort of talk through that. But yeah, we're getting that all fixed up and it yeah, should be all good. The other thing I want to mention is this is sort of like a preview situation. Um just talking about account codes, we've had some questions come in recently about updating the Medicare object codes. So this is not there for you all right now. So I'm going to show you this page, but if you go out here, you cannot see it yet. I will be finishing this up and making it available to you soon. But I figured, at the end of the training here, I'll just give you a little preview. So I've been working on this page for updating Medicare accounts, and basically what this is in reference to is the Medicare account, like the account codes itself did not change. These object codes and been valid, but AOS updated the title of like the description of the 213 and 223 to include Medicare. Well, some districts have now realized, hey, we were using object codes 249 and 259 when if we were posting employer distribution, we were posting our benefits, our Medicare benefits to accounts that had these object codes. So the situation that they're looking at now is they're like, okay, hang on. Now that I see that the 213 and 223 are for Medicare, I need to go update those. So I might need to make new account codes in USS. I need to do some updates in USPS. And so I've been sort of working through this. I think some of them might have already done it for this year. And if they move forward on this, that's great. But the FAQ document from AOS that I linked here hadn't had a question about this, and based on what they said is that this needs to be done before July 1, like beginning July 1, 2028 is when they should be using these. So, I'm sure some people were right on top of it, but I was sort of anticipating that maybe we'll continue to be talking about this and have, some districts that, may wait until later to change these. And so I kind of just went through there it's not like a one way that you have to do this. There are some options here based on how the district may want to process this. So I have sort of some options mapped out, reviewing the old accounts, and then, using that information to create new accounts. You could do that with mass load, or if they do an account change on these, if they want to account change back to the beginning of the year, accounts could just be created that way. I have some notes on, creating an account change import sheet then. And so I really kind of went through and did examples here. And then let me just hop so I don't have to go. And then I have, updates on the USPS side and, what you're looking at to update there, the things to check. So I'm putting finishing touches on this. I have like one more thing I want to sort of get ironed out. And then when this is ready, this will be in our appendix under also under the useful procedures, same place that account change page is. So I don't know, I debated. I'm like, I know it's hard if you can't see it right now, so do I even mention it? But this is our time to talk, and it's related to, account codes as well. So I just kind of want to mention that so you have that in the back of your head. Um, but other than that, that is what I have for the cash account change. Um, so as we go through these, definitely if you guys have questions, let us know. But we made it. We're at fiscal year end. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. But if not, thank you so much for attending and have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.